Thank you for bearing with me. All right, so everybody knows I'm going to be recording this, and I'll be posting the recording online for folks who weren't able to make it this morning. Let me start my screen share, and we'll get rolling. All right, here we go. Let's start the show. So we'll do I have about a 15-minute presentation, and then we'll do some Q&A. Got time for lots of questions. Welcome everyone to this chilly, frigid January 15th morning. I'm Trustee Vanessa Bertozzi, and I'm going to be talking about our new Village Compost pilot. And I'm so thrilled to be able to do that because we've been working on this for quite some time. We formed a compost subcommittee, really stemming from the enthusiasm from certain members, Dorna Schroeder included here. I think Liz Roth is also here. Some other members of the subcommittee might be in the audience. A huge shout out to Mary Burns, Catherine Killefer, Lawrence Miller, Corinna Borden, Caroline Morton, and Sue C. as well. The subcommittee is part of our larger efforts under our Climate Smart Communities program. That's a New York State program for municipalities to partner with volunteers to work on climate actions at the local level. So the village does have a task force devoted to that. And then we have this subcommittee that really said, hey, composting is important for climate change, and it's good for the earth. So we've been doing research for quite some time about how to get something rolling. We've been also engaging with the community in a variety of ways. Here's a picture of us at our booth at the Discovery Festival, which the Rhinebeck Science Foundation puts on. And Sue C had her microscope hooked up to her laptop, and we had a slide with one little drop of compost, and we were looking at how alive the soil is. We had all sorts of microorganisms squirming and worming on the screen. So this is really about bringing dirt to life and helping the earth and helping each other connect on things that you can do. Every household can compost and make that climate action at your own household level. And we as a community want to make that easier for you. And therefore, we've launched this pilot. Our goal is, as part of its climate smart efforts, the Village of Rhinebeck will develop an engaging and effective public food scrap diversion program that both reduces greenhouse gases at landfills and builds healthy soil, ultimately becoming a model for others in our region. Dealing with compostable waste is something that we're going to see more legislation about at the New York State level. And there are other communities here and there that are starting to do stuff. Even in Red Hook, there's talk of Red Hook starting a composting program at their transfer station. Town of Bedford has started composting, Hastings on Hudson. So we want to be one of those at the vanguard of this. And we want to share everything we learn in a really transparent way so that others can follow suit. So I'm going to start with who can participate in the pilot. You have to be a village resident. Here's a map showing the boundaries of our municipality. This is because this is a municipal taxpayer-funded program of the village government. And if you are in the town of Rhinebeck, please feel free to fill out the form. I'll keep you on the wait list in the hopes that we will collaborate and expand with the town in the future. No prior composting experience is required for this pilot. Again, we are setting it up to be super easy for you, and you don't need that experience. We are asking for a 6-month commitment. So I know, some folks go out of town or you go out on vacation for a couple weeks or something. That's totally fine. But we are looking for households that are really going to be able to commit for that full 6 months and mostly be around. And that way we're going to get good data. This is all about estimating volume of food waste and how much we can handle and how many containers we need and that sort of thing. So that's why we're asking for full participation. Who will be selected? I should say this isn't a first come, first serve application, and that is because we need our estimations of volumes. We said we wanted 100 households, but that's based on a mix of household sizes. You know, the larger the household, the more volume of food waste. So we're going to be choosing 100 households with a range of household sizes. The deadline for that process is February 4th, and then on or before February 11th, you'll be notified whether you're in the pilot or you're on the wait list. What if you already compost at home? That's awesome. Good for you. I compost in my own backyard. I'm interested in the pilot, and people like me, I think, would be interested in the pilot because in my backyard, I don't do meat, bones, or dairy. And so with our pilot, because we're going to be bringing it to a facility that has enough volume, they generate enough heat in their compost heaps that they're going to be able to break down those meat, bones, and dairy pretty quickly. So that's one consideration for someone who's already composting to try out the pilot. If you are happily composting at home and you're all good, I mean, some people filled out the form and said, I've been composting for over 30 years and I love it. Keep doing what you're doing. You're awesome. But please do fill out the form because we're also gathering data to try to see how many people in the village are already happily composting in their backyards. And we will be sharing resources and information on that. Some people in their backyard said, yeah, I'm doing it. I love it. But I would love to get more tips from other composters. So please do fill out the form and encourage any friends or neighbors in the village to fill out the form. How will the pilot work? So say you're one of the 100 households, we will get in touch with you. Your next step would be go to the Ozone website. We're going to give you a password so that you can set up your monthly subscription. Okay, so this is not a free pilot. It is subsidized by the municipal government, meaning you're going to be paying less with this pilot than if you were to do this independently on your own. So it is, you're getting a bargain, but we actually feel like if you've got some skin in the game, you're more likely to really follow through and do it. And this is a way for it to be not so burdensome on the village budget. So here are the different tiers. This is a tier scheme that the Ozone came up with to try to really create some fair pricing according to your household size and your volume of compost. So after you've signed up for payments, we will give you a bucket with a lid if you need it. If you already have a bucket, that's fabulous. We're trying to minimize the amount of plastic that we're introducing into this system. But if you don't have a lidded bucket, we can provide one for you. Every participant will get a cute sticker, so that will be a sure thing. So then starting March 1st, you'll take your bucket full of food scraps, and there will be a set of collection bins in this municipal parking lot. So it's not the big main parking lot, which would be to the north of this map. It's actually the little back parking lot behind the police department and behind Village Hall and the fire department. There's a shed back there, and we'll set up the bins back there. There's also PS charging station, so you can always come and charge your electric vehicle while you drop your food scraps. And the idea, what we're going to try is have those bins there for you 24/7, so you can drop off your food scraps at your own convenience, knowing that Amelia and her crew from the Ozone, our hauling partners, will come on Mondays to pick up the larger collection bins and then haul those over to Ulster County Resource Recovery Agency, which is the composting facility where the food scraps will be made into compost. And they've been doing this for years, and they do a great job. They're composting a massive amount of food waste, And finally, just to bring this whole thing full circle, closed loop style, at the end of the pilot, we will be making compost available to participants free of charge. And so you will be able to get your gold dirt, your black gold back at the end of the pilot. If you have no need for the compost, that's fine. You don't have to take it if you don't have a use for it. But just know that compost is great, not just for your yard. If you don't have a yard, it can even work for your potted plants. Now I want to talk about just the scope of the pilot. I already mentioned those 100 households. Note that that's roughly about 10% of village households. We're also asking and inviting village businesses to take part with a focus on restaurants, food stores, and coffee shops. Samuel's has said yes. Sunflower Food Market has said yes. And we have a few others who are really interested. They're just looking at getting in touch with Amelia at the Ozone. So if you have a favorite restaurant, food store, coffee shop, or even any other sort of business in the village, please tell them to be in touch with us so that we can tell them about the program and what it would mean for a business. Businesses are different from households because they have other needs, especially restaurants. Think of Terrapin, how much volume they have versus Samuel's. So they have a range of how many bins they might need. And they probably want curbside pickup, especially if they're generating a lot of food waste. So they're going to be paying their own commercial rates sort of as a separate line from the 100 households. We have Leola here today, and I would like to announce that JSA Financial on Livingston Street, they are a wealth management company, and they, as not even a restaurant or a coffee shop, they're going to be participating in the pilot as a business. So what they're doing is doing a food scrap collection for their employees as an office perk, which I think is such a fabulous idea. And we'd like to help spread the word about that model as a way for local businesses to take part. And maybe in the Q&A, we could discuss that more with Leola if she can stick around. So with all of these participants, it adds up to about 1.7 tons of food waste per week diverted from the landfill, which is really awesome. And that's our goal for this pilot. Here's a timeline. So right now we're in the phase of trying to spread the word and getting as many signups as possible. We have had over 100 people fill out our form. About 40% of those are people who are already composting, which is awesome. But that means that we still have a ways to go to get enough applications from people who want to take part in the drop-off part of the pilot. So please do spread the word to friends and neighbors in the village. And then after that February 4th deadline, continue to spread the word because we want to continue to build our wait list. March 1st, our drop-off starts and the Ozone starts to haul over to UCRA, the Ulster County Resource Recovery Agency. And then it runs for 6 months. So we go until August 31st. If things are looking like they're a success and we have a wait list showing demand for this to expand, we may apply for a grant in July from DEC, from the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, who typically have compost-related grants. So I want to take a step back here, talk a little bit about why this is so important. Why are we doing this? I've mentioned drawing down your household greenhouse gas footprint, or your business greenhouse gas footprint. I don't know people realize until they start doing this just how much of your garbage is food waste. It's alarming. The average American trash can is 30% compostable materials. So if you think about that, you're going to have to take out your garbage less often. You're going to have to go to the transfer station less often. If you have a private, Welsh or waste management pickup, maybe you could even reduce the size of the bin that you have. So these are potential ways that you could save money on the other end, right? We talked about how compost really enriches your soil in your yard or even your potted plants. We have talked about how we want to be a leader in the area for other municipalities. And I don't know about you, but for me personally, I think a lot about the world that my kids are inheriting. And, the young people today, they need to see grown-ups, heads of households stepping up and taking some responsibility and changing their habits. This is just about changing your behavior and committing to showing them that you care about their future. And then there's also this Climate Smart Communities program that I mentioned at the head of this presentation. That's the program that we're doing where every action that we do, we gain points towards a certification. We already have bronze, we're looking towards silver. And that program is a way for us to achieve higher ranking when we go for grants related to our climate work. And then, of course, we feel like this is a great way for us to get the word out about what we do here in the village with our climate program. And hopefully this will pave the way for other collaborations with our community and volunteers. And finally, your garbage will be less stinky and fruit fly infested. If you're moving all your food waste to a separate lidded container, it actually is a nicer experience in the kitchen, I have found. So some folks, even ourselves on the subcommittee, when we started this project, we were like, we've got to make sure that the story that we're telling ourselves about greenhouse gas emissions and composting is real. And we had concerns that a drop-off model where then food scraps are then being hauled to a site over the river, are we just going to be doing more damage than good with all the transportation of the food scraps hither, thither, and yon? But our partners at the Rochester Institute of Technology, at the Pollution Prevention Institute, we did a feasibility study with them. And one of the things we really wanted them to prove for us is just that question. So they did the math and they took into account all the things that you can see here in the fine print. And what they found is that even factoring in transportation of hauling food scraps to an offsite location for composting, you're still net sequestering carbon when you're composting those food scraps versus landfilling them. And this is because rotting food in landfills creates methane. And methane is an even more potent greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. That's the CO2e, that's carbon dioxide equivalent. That's sort of the standardized metric for greenhouse gases. And so we were just very pleased to see that this is totally worth it. And it will make a big difference. Okay, so what if I don't get into the pilot? Some of you may be asking. We will keep you on that wait list. As we said, we hope to expand this program, and building that wait list even after the February 4th deadline is going to be important, because if the public doesn't want this, then we're not going to be able to offer it. So please do encourage friends and neighbors to fill out the form. And then after the pilot, this is really about gauging participation. As I said, are the people who sign up, are they actually going to do it and take it upon themselves to dump their food scraps at this collection bin? This is what we want to see. This is a pilot. This is an experiment. It's a test. And if it works, then expanding the program into a more permanent offering. For me, I think to make the most impact, I think we're talking about not just plant-based material, but also meat, dairy, and bones. I think we'd like to do a year-round program, so you're not stopping and starting and getting into the habit and then falling out of the habit and then having to get back into the habit. And we want to continue to make it low cost and low complexity. And these factors are TBD as we get into discussions about how the village would like to proceed. So reminder, apply by February 4th. I've tried to make the link to apply pretty front and center on our climatesmartrhinebeck.org website. We also have a new URL, which is simply rhinebeckcompost.org, that forwards right to the pilot page. So now I would like to do some Q&A. I will stop sharing my screen.
Vanessa, Ann has her hand up.
Ann, go for it.
I have two quick related questions. On the fee slide that you showed, it's a little confusing. It doesn't say what the fee would be for a single adult who is non-student, non-senior. That's one question. And the other is, what age qualifies you for senior status?
Oh, Amelia, are you still with us? I think that same rate.
Hi there. Yes, I'm here.
Amelia, even if you're not a student and not a senior, do you still qualify for the $6 a month?
Yeah, it's I think the single individuals are the $6 a month.
Okay.
And then the households of 2 would be the $8, and then 3 to 4, and then 5+.
Okay.
So sorry for the confusion.
And I did want to add, while we're on that topic of cost, we know that there are people in our community who can't afford this, and it's just not possible for them. In the name of equity and trying to reach out to folks who are disadvantaged in that way, we have had some community members step up and say that they would sponsor a family. So if you know of someone who's interested in this, but they just they have financial challenges to participating, let me know, or they can fill out the form and note that in their form, and we can match them with a sponsor. And I thought that was such a lovely thing to hear from our community and even some members of our subcommittee.
So my other question is still out there. What age qualifies you to be a senior? And if the 2-person household, I mean, I'm not sure where the student and senior comes into play as any kind of benefit, because I assume a 2-person senior household or a 2-person student household would still be the 2-person rate, not the single $6 rate. So I wonder if you want to really have student and senior on there at all, just have a 1 person.
That's a really good point, Anne. I think you're right. I don't think that there's any additional discount if you're 65 plus senior. So I can remove that. I think we were just maybe looking to make it appealing to a student or a senior, but really it's anyone of any age who's living on their own.
Thank you.
Thank you for that note. Any other questions?
Your idea for community people to sponsor folks who can't afford to participate, JSA Sustainable Wealth Management would be happy to sponsor some folks too if needed.
Oh, thanks, Leola. Awesome.
So glad you're doing this. Thank you.
Fabulous. Yeah, we've had a couple people call into Village Hall offering just that. And I just think that's so, just makes me so proud of our community.
Lisa has a question.
Thank you.
Hi, yeah, my question is, some people compost and have the biodegradable bags that they use as liners in their containers. That's still acceptable for this, correct, if they're biodegradable?
That's, oh boy, Lisa, you you put your finger right on a thorny issue, which is that our composting partner over at Ulster County Resource Recovery Agency, they used to take those biodegradable bags and even compostable takeout containers and anything that was labeled BPI. That's a certain standard of a compostable material. They were taking that, but then they notified our partner at the Ozone that they're reviewing whether or not they can continue to accept those things. And I will just say that it's still under review. We will make it very clear whether or not we can accept those before we start collection. It's the background here is that those things, those products, even though they're labeled compostable in an appropriate compost site or whatever, an industrial scale compost facility, the boots on the ground over at the compost site are saying that it's taking so long for those materials to actually break down. Even though, as I said, they generate a very high heat in their compost heaps. It's taking such a long time to break down. Those materials are having problems where then those bags and those products start, the wind picks them up and they start flying around the compost site and getting gummed up in machinery, and it just creates havoc. And I think they know that they want to be able to do it. We all feel like it's labeled as such, you should be able to, but they're finding that in reality, it's presenting a problem. So we'll let you know. And
then to be transparent about that when you do find out.
Let
people know, because some people already use them and that's just part of their system. So
right.
That was my question.
Yep. And there's a cost to buying those compostable plastic bags. So if you're not able to, or even if you don't want to have that added expense, we're going to recommend, I think, that you just line your bucket with some recyclable paper or something like a brown paper bag or something. That really does help with a bucket, keeping it less gooped up, and making it easier to just tip it over and dump it out when you've lined it with some old papers. And we think that could be a solution. It does mean that instead of just bringing like a plastic, compostable plastic bag to the collection bin, you'd have to bring your whole bucket and stuff. But so thank you, Lisa. We'll stay tuned to this issue. I think it speaks to the larger dynamic of this is a whole emerging industry of new products that are really trying to do better and use less plastic, but how to dispose of them, the recycling community has not quite figured out how to actually dispose of them in the best way. Amelia, do you have anything else to add to that?
No, Vanessa, I think you put it very, very well. So that's exactly what the reality is right now.
Okay.
Vanessa, can I also add that, you could also line the bucket with a newspaper as well. And that would, you wouldn't be able to pull it out as a bag, but it would provide the lining that you need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, we're trying to make this as no muss, no fuss for everybody as possible. But it's true. Your bucket will get dirty, and we want to make it easier for you to rinse it out. So lining it with something like newspaper would help. Okay, Gary, you have a question?
Yeah. So as we're discussing food scraps, there are a lot of paper products that are recyclable and could help also reduce people's, throw out of garbage and trash and recycle. Or at any time, are we going to be thinking about taking additional paper scraps that are recyclable?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've had that question from a couple other folks, and if it's and Amelia, you can jump in here as well, but if it's something like, once in a while a paper napkin or like a little bit of soiled paper, that's fine, but we're not collecting recycled paper in this project. Your recycled paper should still go to your paper recycling facility. And, if you're lining your bucket with a little bit of old newspaper, that's fine, but please don't shred up your paper and add that to your food scraps as a general rule. Amelia, any other thoughts on that?
No, that's perfect. Yeah, you're able to include some napkins and paper towels and things that are moist from the food, but just not an overabundance of that material, as again, that'll fly around and such. So that was, perfect. Thanks.
And
Yes, same for egg cartons, which often people, who compost in their backyard will break up their egg cartons into small pieces. None of that.
That could be included. That has been included by a few of the restaurants, and that hasn't been a problem. It does, maybe if they're shredded up, it doesn't add like a huge volume. You can add a cardboard, egg carton or such when needed. That's fine too.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just don't, it's a fine line, right, when communicating this, because we don't want folks to then be like, oh, great, well, I'll just shred up all of my paper and then include that in my food waste bucket. That's not what we're saying here, just to be clear.
Yeah, and I feel like when some people go to the bin and they see one person adding something, then they take that information and it could go in 3 or 4 different directions. So, but we're trying to stick to food. They say at Ulster County Resource Recovery, their mission is to keep food out of the landfill. So just keeping that in mind, I think, is a good rule of thumb, is anything food related. And then if there's a little paper involved here and there, but mostly just keep it at food.
Yep. Gary, you got another question?
Just for a little bit further clarification, so you line your bucket with a paper bag or newspaper, you can include that into the compost, correct?
Yeah. You could just dump the whole thing in.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we do, if you're a participant in the program, we will be reaching out to you with like a very fine-grained list of what you can include, what not to include, and some other tips on how to make it easy, different options for you. I know some people, for instance, they like to keep a smaller bucket in their freezer just because they don't want to deal with any fruit flies anywhere. And some people, like, I just keep my lidded bucket outside my kitchen door, and it's very easy for me to just, during the day, I have like a bowl just left out by the kitchen sink where I'm putting my scraps, and then once a day I'll dump it into the lidded bucket outside my kitchen door. So we could even share some tips with folks on just different things to try. Leola, would you like to say a little bit about how you're planning to work it as an office business, an office-based business here in the village, not so much as a restaurant or a cafe?
Oh, yes. And thanks for the inspiration, Vanessa. We think it's a great idea from the Climate Smart Community team to encourage businesses to provide it as an added employee benefit. And so in our staff meeting, I asked the team, might you like to do this? And we don't have a team who's necessarily composting already. And they liked the idea very much of bringing their scraps into, our container that would be in our parking lot, and our employees could save their food scraps from home and bring them on in. And then once a week, our ozone partner would pick them up and send them off for composting at the Ulster County facility. Yeah, so we're just offering it as an employee benefit. We do backyard compost also in our location on Livingston Street. So we do already collect, apple cores and orange peels and different things for our backyard composting. And employees are invited to bring their stuff from home there. But for ease, they can just throw all of their home food waste into one bucket and throw it into our participation in this pilot Rhinebeck Food Scrap Community Program. And we'll see how it goes.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay.
I have a question while I have the microphone, if that's all right. In most of the correspondence, we don't see things like pizza or cupcakes or other type of food waste that people may have. And because I know that, of course, it's wonderful that it collects the bones and things, those things we don't want to put in our backyard compost. But we could also put, cupcakes and pizza and other kind of food scraps as well, right?
That's a really good point. We were just brainstorming with our compost subcommittee, and one of our members of our committee is a graphic designer, and she's the one, I should give credit to her, Catherine Kaleffer, who designed the logo for us and any of the cute illustrations. So we were brainstorming what other food items feel representative of compost. And of course we were saying, oh, carrot tops and banana peels. But you're right, we should have like a half-eaten cupcake on there or a half-eaten piece of pizza, because anything that's food qualifies. That's a really good note. That would be kind of cute to have a half-eaten cupcake. Yeah, the only like food related item that won't be allowable is like kitchen grease. Like if you're, after you make some sausages and you pour off your grease, we're not accepting grease. And, we'll also have a list of what not to compost. Don't compost kitty litter or your dog poop or your kids' soiled diapers, please. Food related, but doesn't qualify. Okay. Well, are there any last questions before we end? Okay. Well, thank you all for coming. I think we had about 15 people on this call, and I really appreciate you taking the time and considering this. Feel free to reach out to us if you have any follow-up questions. We do have an FAQ on the web page. If you scroll down, if you have questions, maybe look there first. But always feel free to reach out. And I want to put out a call for you who are here to go forth and tell your friends and neighbors, please. This is a community effort, and it's really only going to be a success if we can get it to take off and catch on.
And I can tell you about a small village starting this and getting the whole town to do it. In Westchester, that's exactly what happened. Scarsdale started out, and now we've got the whole town of Greenburgh. That's, Irvington and Hastings and Dobbs Ferry and Tarrytown. And so don't underestimate the power of the incredible impact you can have by participating now in this pilot. And hopefully they'll tell two friends and so on, and it'll really, really spread. Good going, everybody.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend. Bye.